Resident Evil is a survival horror series known for being one of the greatest horror series in gaming. Perhaps not all the time, but being the grandfather of horror, you're allowed a few slip-ups. What moments define this series for horror in each mainline entry? What makes the most genre-defining horror stand out? Movies have for a long time formulated a variety of methods to pry out that eerie sensation you feel down your spine. But what moments in Resident Evil have managed to stand out and reach that mountaintop of terror seen across some of the best horror films? From the get-go, Resident Evil 1 starts off with a bang, being chased by zombie dogs into an unfamiliar mansion. Confused, out of breath, and bewildered by what is going on around them, the tone of Resident Evil 1 sets up a bunch of nightmares, one after another. Intensity, seclusion, and a perpetual eeriness throughout, a strange, unfamiliar noise in the distance, a creaky door or wooden floor slowly bending to the point of nearly snapping. Resident Evil 1 manages to be perpetual terror, making it truly difficult to narrow down a single moment. But the trademark obvious answer is in the first encounter with a zombie. Even though nearly the entire game feels like one long moment of terror, this very brief early situation sets up everything to come after. The remake has an exclusive moment that startled me more than the iconic one I just mentioned. After going through for a short while and either avoiding or putting down problematic zombies along the way, you start to get comfortable. Another zombie? No problem. Then as you return to a hallway you've previously traversed before, it violently stands up. Not the slow, sluggish zombie that it was before, but fast and almost instant panic induces. This is a Crimson Head zombie. This was nightmare fuel. Suddenly, the ammo that I thought I had enough of wasn't enough. Run and run away fast, and oh hell no, there is no way I'm going back to that hallway, except that you have to. And you know what awaits you. The remake's new flavor of horror redefined horror in this game for me. That first scene is iconic, but it's a cutscene. It feels slightly less impactful because there's no real danger unless you're unaware that by the game's design, you are meant to go back to the safety of the previous room.
One eternity later.
It's a monster!
Lisa Trevor is a key addition for the remake. The way she stumbles around and creepily moans about the cabin and underground sections of the game are a perfect change-up for everything else that wants to start running directly at your face. Wouldn't say it's S-tier levels of horror, best of the best, but A quality is still damn sufficient for a game that's start to finish swimming in it. Unless you have a fear of sharks, snakes, or spiders, it's likely a zombie-centric moment that stands out the most. Honorable mention to dogs popping through windows and hunters learning to open doors before we move on. A game not just split between character playthroughs, but also split across terrifying moments. The previous game really felt like it was easy to choose a selection with limited options. This one is much more open-ended. Once again, there's a safe choice to choose. However, I'm not convinced it's the best answer to the question of most terrifying. The first encounter with a licker crawling along the ceiling is absolutely terrifying. Walking down the hallway with nothing in sight but hearing a creature lurking louder and louder as you progress down this hallway, turning to glance at something hanging on the ceiling is pure terror. I'll throw in the licker moment bursting through a window as well, but half the time you're probably already through the door and you don't see it, you just hear it. What else strikes fear in the game? Mr. X's first appearance, but even though there is dread in the constant pursuit from him, he looks too goofy for me to take seriously. Is it stressful being pushed along into possible mistakes of where to go? Will I get cornered by this giant grump face? Yeah, but the lickers in the game sense sound, making you stick to a quiet place and pace of movement. Mr. X, you just run. Keep running. You can lose them even at times, and you're also a bit faster. Not as terrifying as you might think. This game also has another large creature that lurks throughout. The scientist whom turned himself into a tyrant of a monster, William G. Birkin, encountered several times throughout the game, mutating into different forms at each step. Starting off more human until succumbing to pure carnage, by the end, this super tyrant version is just that. A terrorizing carnage of horror. A giant beast you must go through and survive, an overbearing chase making Mr. X puny in nature. The giant stature, the force this creature has is definitely intimidating, but is it terrorizing? It wins the award for most terrifying to look at, but there isn't exactly one single moment that trumps any encounter with a licker. Freaky creature for sure, but one-dimensional. The licker manages to still hold out, in my opinion, as having the most intense horror in the game with multiple moments to choose from. A game where we're going to have to look to the past to get a proper answer. A room full of bugs that can come from anywhere feels more terrifying than the constant pursuit of a raging monster hell-bent on your demise isn't good enough, and perhaps it wasn't done well enough in the first place. Nemesis of old, however, is exactly what he's unable to execute in the remake version. The possibility of it being around any corner, any street, running after you through doorway on doorway until barely managing to survive is pure terror. In the remake, it's like he forgot that his legs can go from walk mode to run mode. Heck, a slight jog or speed walk would have amounted to something more. The original feels relentless throughout. Choosing a single moment because of this is quite difficult. There are a few times where Jill is so enclosed by a limited and small environment that knowing this creature can run in this small space with nowhere to go is horrifying as you play through. Most of these moments are encapsulated with choice of either to attempt to fight, flee, or if you're too indecisive for too long, an option made due to your indecision. Fleeing may only delay what is inevitable with a creature breaking through walls and any means necessary to get to you. Out of all these intense moments, the three that stand out are all roughly the same as far as being in a tight space, limited options for survival, and fully engrossed in panic. The first encounter right in front of the iconic RPD building. Brad being instantly wiped out, and Jill quickly coping with grief of an ally and fighting back or bolting into the police station. Secondly, we have the kitchen sequence to hide within it. Doesn't work. Or go into the basement. And thirdly, the press office building we're casually strolling through and surprise, guess who else decided to stroll in and corner you? All three of these spots in the game equate roughly equal terror and define Nemesis as a true force to reckon with. A bit open-ended answer, but there's no rules in this video. This is a bit of a cop-out, but I found Code Veronica not to really contain any true master of horror moments. Are there creepy, freaky, and unsettling moments? Absolutely yes. But just like Alien is a film at the top tier of horror, There are other films in the franchise that don't come close to matching it. Code Veronica is like that for the Resident Evil franchise.
I'm sure back when it released in 2000 for the Dreamcast that it was over the edge for being scary. But in 2024, it's pretty tame.
The first departure from more horror-centric to action for the series. That doesn't mean Capcom removed the ingredient that made the series so strong to begin with, but it's noticeably reduced. Overall, Resident Evil 4 is on the lesser side of the spectrum for horror. There are intense battles, and having a crowd chasing you is frantic for sure, not redefining horror by any means either.
Bingo?
The original and remake share a moment that stands out apart from the rest of the game. A creature that makes horrifying noises lurks later on in the game, is near indestructible, and can be a bit prickly to deal with. The regenerators take a pretty lukewarm game and heat things up for a bit. They may walk or slither slowly, but that creepy sound they make inches closer and closer, and unless you have an infrared scope to use, you will be expending an incredible amount of ammo just to take one down. Generally speaking, Leon is running away until he finds and equips this infrared scope to see the weak spots. Otherwise, they're shooting blindly, and if you don't get all of them, it's time for it to regenerate. The one other part of the game I found to stand out was with Salazar's henchman, Verdugo. After a short cutscene where it's rapidly approaching, just like the Hunter cutscenes, it bursts through a door and is now in the same room as Leon. Waiting for it to fully appear is tense, like seeing an alien's tail before it fully emerges. This small portion felt like a moment out of the Alien movie universe and is undoubtedly eerie in the same manner. There are a few other spooky moments, but these two seem to stand out amongst the crowd and Resident Evil 4. I almost didn't bother, as nothing here in this game really is that horrifying, but I'll honorable mention a few moments and move along.
The tentacle boss, Ouroboros, early on is invincible and rages through the hallways. He can be a bit tedious to deal with, but flames out in the end.
The first encounter with the chainsaw guy, if you get too close and personal, could be problematic and a little bit terrifying. And some old friends from previous entries return, and that of the Lickers. All somewhat unsettling, but again, just really an honorable mention.
Resident Evil 6.
This game definitely has its fair share of freaks. The one gas bomb enemy reminds me of a humanoid alien from Alien Resurrection that creeped me out a lot. Another similar enemy acting like Resident Evil 4's Regenerator. Copycats get disqualified.
If we keep this up, we're gonna run out of ammo.
That's pretty much it. Creeped out is about all this game can muster. Capcom turns back to making horror a focus, with a bit more body horror taking place versus straight up monster horror. There's a few solid options to choose from, and Jack and Mia stand out for entirely different reasons. Early on, while Ethan is searching the seemingly empty house, he walks by an open closet underneath a staircase to the attic. The first time there's nothing. When returning to circle back, Mia pops out, seems normal, then erratically changes personality and stabs Ethan with a screwdriver. Also goes into full rage mode with the chainsaw, slicing through walls and doors in a boss fight shortly thereafter.
Welcome to the family, son.
Jack's moment when he bursts through a wall after you believe you just escaped his grasp also stands out, as does this small, tightly enclosed butcher room boss fight. Marguerite is the last heavy hitter of standout horror remaining for the game. There's creepy leftovers, but for top tier, things end here. She has a different style, typically resorting to having the biggest potty mouth and erratic ramblings of words and noises. She mostly sticks to slowly stumbling about, but does have a few surprises while you're trying to evade her. Her boss fight can get hectic if you scramble about, but if you maintain a limited space or use a near safe spot to cheese it, it's not as tough as Jack and Mia's boss battles prior. If her spider sense gets to you, I can see where she might leapfrog the others, but personally found her a notch below the other two, being more irritating to listen to, like me, and cumbersome to navigate around than a terrifying top-tier terror. Emotionally, Mia was a bit more surprising, but deep down it also felt like she could return to her normal state of personality at any given moment. Jack is unpredictable, relentless like the original Nemesis, and always kept the player guessing. Bonus round, this door and doorway to the basement is always creepy. Invalid for being a door though. Spooky Doors, the sequel series.
Prepare to enter the scary door.
Where the hell am I?
This game has some parallels to Resident Evil 4, not just because it has a castle, but because it really just has one small area in the game of being terrifying. It's when everything goes dark, weapons removed, and the scream of a monster that cries while looking like a deformed, grotesque baby awaits. With no option to fight, Ethan must run and hide from this creature and manage to solve and restore power to an elevator to escape this evil baby's wrath. I wouldn't necessarily call this top-tier horror, but it's the one section of the game that stands apart, feeling a bit more like Silent Hill perhaps. The lichens early on can be a bit freaky too, but we're not looking for a small dose of horror. We want the most horrific, memorable moment possible. What moments in the series did you find to be the most terrifying while playing through? Did I forget anything? Let me know in the comments down below. As always, thank you for watching, have a great day, and if you enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time on Hittobox for more Resident Evil content.